Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Constant Agitation. This is episode 31.
31, yes.
As always, I'm Jimmy, your host, and I'm joined by Eva. And I think the audio is a bit too low. How you doing, Eva?
I'm good. I think I sound all right, at
Right.
least.
Maybe I lost hearing immediately as I started. Today is a special episode again because we have a live guest with us, and it's Karin Majoka. Hey Karin, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. It's really cool of you to come here and join us.
It would be cooler if she would come here, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Maybe when COVID is finished, we
Yeah,
can
that'd be nice.
meet up and have some fun and take photos.
Yeah.
But before we
Definitely.
get distracted, can you please introduce yourself for everybody in case they're not familiar with your work?
Yes, so my name is Karin Majoka and I am a film photographer / basically a psychologist who's doing film photography on the side and trying to do creative things. And I run a small little personal YouTube channel where I show my adventures in film photography and get the chance to connect to really nice and cool people like you. So that's basically what I do.
Great. I had to say that I think I found your channel very little after you started over a year ago, right?
Yeah, wow. You're one of the first ones when I was still a baby channel. That's nice.
Yeah, that's also about when we started as well. And I was just like, getting to know what's out there. And I think the first video that I saw was, I don't know if maybe the Cinestill in Berlin subway might have been, or maybe that was one that I remember more. But yeah, I remember it's like, this is cool stuff. And then following up with your work, and then I remember, and then the first time that I decided to actually write to you was when you were doing the inventory of your film, because we were also doing that. And I'm like, I cannot guess the number of roles you have. So yeah, it was cool.
But it's so nice. I feel like a lot of people started around that time when like the first proper lockdown hit and everybody was like bored and needed to have something to do in their life. So I feel like this is a kind of bubble of people who started at the same time and are kind of on the same path right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was definitely one of the best times to start something adventurous.
Right.
Like this.
For sure.
Everybody had some extra time on their hand.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Karin. Why do you take photos?
Yeah, that's a good question because I do like different things creatively. So I like painting, at least this is how it started, and it kind of evolved into photography from there. But I think I just keep coming back to film photography because it's a creative medium where I feel like I can express myself fast, like compared to other media like painting, for example.
I see.
Yeah, I can relate to that feeling, and you as well, right?
Yes, but like my question maybe is a bit, what compels you to actually take photos or draw? Like, why do you do it? Is it just because it's fun, or is there something that you don't really know? Or share with me your thoughts on what compels you to take photos, especially. I've been looking at your work more recently, and I've seen that at least in the past, like because you change your style on Instagram, that's what I have access to. And I've seen there was a period where you've done a lot of street photography. And I'm very curious about these photos because I like your street photography work. I wasn't aware of it before. I like your other work as well, but I was pleasantly surprised when I saw your street photography stuff.
Thank you.
And because I like to do that stuff myself. And a lot of times I see a lot of work that not necessarily up to my taste or not something that I like, but I kind of felt, I really liked what I saw on your profile. And my question is, do you have a reason why are you taking these photos?
So I think, I think I have to back off a little bit here because I feel like there's a basic kind of need for creating that I have, that I feel like everybody who's doing art has in some sort. And I think the question is just which channel do you use to get it out there, right? And I feel like I'm just not stuck to one channel, but I feel like I'm just experimenting with a lot to try to find what I like. And I have to say that, like, in the beginning, I wouldn't say I was against photography, but I had a very hard time understanding photography as an art medium, because I personally always thought, this will sound so judgmental and so bad, but it will get better from there, because I always thought that photography is kind of the medium for the people who are, for example, not capable in drawing or having like something else. But I was so wrong, and I'm so happy that I kind of made the turn to find out what photography really means, because honestly, for me, painting was always, you have a blank canvas, you can do whatever you want, and you can create all the elements yourself. And I thought that this is the hard part, right? But with photography, I think it's even harder, because you have the elements in the world you need to work with to create something. So it's like a mixture of things you have in control, like, for example, your camera, the lens you're shooting, the film you're shooting. There's like specific choices you have, but also the things that you cannot control, like not like with painting, where you can pretty much control everything. Absolutely. And especially, I think, with street photography, there is so much you cannot control. And I just love the excitement of trying to use the tools you have to kind of figure out the world around you and use the chances you have, even with the little control you have. I think this is kind of what draws me into photography specifically. Does it make sense? Sometimes I feel like my thoughts don't make sense, but I hope
it makes a lot of sense. I absolutely agree.
It totally makes sense.
I have a question about some of the photos that I've seen. Do you find yourself sometimes finding a composition and waiting for somebody to walk into the frame or lining up with something, or do you anticipate it and then try to be as quick as possible and take it? Like, how do you plan shots where you have stuff aligning or falling perfectly into the frame?
Yeah, I think the question is relating to, are you like a fisherman who's waiting for the things to happen, or are you like a hunter who's kind of, walking and just crossing paths? And I think I'm definitely more of a hunter and not a fisherman. So I don't wait around, but I feel like I constantly move, and I don't, like, sometimes I see a scene where I think the light is perfect, and then I stop for a short while. But first of all, I'm like really impatient, and I cannot wait there and think about how many other moments I might have missed. And secondly, I feel I have to quote a book here, because I feel like this is what really kind of shows how I feel about street photography. I don't know if you know the book Pigeons in the Grass, which kind of describes a like city more or less from above, where you have like different protagonists, and there's like no main protagonist, but there's like many protagonists who are crossing paths, but sometimes they are not. And only you as a reader know what everybody's doing, but they are not aware of each other's existence in a way.
Yeah.
And sometimes the paths cross, and sometimes there's a knot that happens because these stories like cross. And I feel like with street photography, it's the same, that I see, or I'm like one of these little people, like one of these little persons, and there's a lot of other people like moving around, and sometimes we cross, sometimes we get this moment, and then everybody's living their life, but I'm kind of trying to happen for the dots to align, and I feel like I just have to move to do so.
I see. I really liked some of these photos, by the way. This one, I was so in love with this photo. I have a compelling to tell you this one too. These are really nice.
Thank you.
Eva, you want to ask a question maybe?
All right. Yeah, so maybe, we talk about why photography as a creative outlet of sorts, and I'm really happy to actually be talking to someone that might have had a preconception about photography, and then by immersing themselves in it, you actually get to know how different it is than what you actually thought, and then you just have work very hard, to become better and to create what your creative self is kind of like urging you to create. But why film specifically?
Yeah, honestly, I think it would be the easiest way to go digital. And I think I'm just a person who doesn't like to go the easy way. It would just be too easy. And I think it also has something to do with my background, that I come more from painting, because I just feel like even though I get to, appreciate the medium of photography now, there's still this component of needing something tactile, of needing like some sort of more of the experience of making things, of creating things. And I'm not saying that digital doesn't do that. Digital does well do that, but it just doesn't do that for me, at least not at this point in my life. I'm just trying to not be like closed down to like different media. So maybe like in 5 years, I would love digital, but just right now I really appreciate that I have like grain structure, that I have like something tactile that I can put in my camera, that I have all the knobs that feel like so alive in a way, like compared to a digital camera where you just touch buttons. And the whole like developing process, I hate scanning, like don't ask me about scanning, but the whole developing process is like so tactile and so real, and I just really appreciate that, I guess.
Yeah, I understand you, and I think it also makes you feel more of the whole process, right? Like you are one element of the creation that is happening and the final piece, so to speak. And I also feel like with digital, maybe I am less part of it. Also part, of course, you are the person taking the photo, but somehow maybe less part of the whole.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I love digital cameras.
Yeah, you do.
I think they're really cool.
But you're a tech head, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be able to do this
sure.
without digital cameras, right? But at the same time, I think we talked about this often before, and there is no harm repeating it over and over. I feel like the experience, at least for me personally, when I'm using digital, the photos are just more disposable. And maybe you could relate to this. I used to like drawing when I was a kid, and then it fell off. My life changed a little bit. Had different interests until I got back to photography, and then I was like, I used to paint. What happened to that? Maybe I should learn again, right? So I opened up what everybody does nowadays when they want to learn something. I open up YouTube and I just type in how to draw. I get this exercise, and it's basically put your eyes on a scene and put the pen to the paper and draw something without looking at it.
Just looking at the scene.
Yeah, keep your eyes on the scene and keep drawing. And then the second step is to look at it and love it. That was the second step. Is like try to understand or try to find reasons why it's beautiful. Try to see beauty in whatever mess you made. And for me, that exercise almost applies to film photography because of the scarcity of it. Because I'm not shooting, like I don't have burst mode, or I'm not taking so many shots of the same scene, or if I'm going on a walk, I'm not taking 200 photos, street photos in one walk. I have to spend more time trying to appreciate or trying to extract more of the frames that I end up getting on a film shoot. So that's, at least to me, one of the main things that stand out about the process itself, rather than the qualities of the process as in terms of color or grain or and I love how messy film is sometimes when you scan it, because it makes me want to put in more effort. I care more about making it happen rather than digital for some reason.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes any sense.
I guess you're maybe
makes total sense. Yeah,
more involved from the very beginning into the process.
Speaking of involved, we got another question for you, Karin. Somebody watched one of your most recent videos about large format. Do you have the question pulled up?
So I have it here. Confused. I can write it. So, having experienced large format, what's on the horizon for your own photographic work, and where, if at all, does the large format fit into your workflow?
That's actually funny, because I'm just having a large format camera sitting right next to me, but I think I'm not gonna show it yet. I think I'm gonna keep it to myself and tell you a little bit more about it, when it's time. But as I suspected, large format is addictive, and it, couldn't just be the one time shooting large format, but I definitely caught the bug and want to give it some more try. I have to say that I'm not sure if I will deep dive into large format and if this will be my main two thing, because I think what I mostly do is street photography, and large format doesn't, I mean, it could, but this is probably not the weapon number one of choice for street photography. So I feel like I would like to do something very specific, a very specific project on large format. Still have to come up with it, but I'm pretty sure that there will be some opportunity coming up to give the camera a try.
Unless you are David Burnett, that he does street photography with large format camera.
Yeah, he does photojournalism with
large format camera. So
Yeah,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
he's a unique guy.
he is very unique. There's a lot to learn from him, and his photos
Yeah.
are really, really cool.
Yeah. What do we have next?
But just to maybe point on that once, I think it's, just because I'm saying, large format is not the weapon of choice for street photography, it doesn't mean it couldn't work. I think actually like these are the most interesting combinations to use things that don't work together, to use things that people might not like think of at first glance, because of course, like most people and me included, use a rangefinder camera for street photography because this might be like a good tool, to act fast and to still see like a good portion around the frame and not only like the frame itself. But I think it shouldn't have to be like for the whole time, but I think sometimes it's good to break out of these like boxes that we think is the best tool for a job. Like just as you said about drawing, like of course you create better things if you look at the paper, but maybe you create something that you didn't expect if you use a tool that maybe it's not suitable for the job, like not looking at the paper, but looking somewhere else. So I think with photography, it's the same, like using a large format camera for street photography or using a point and shoot for fashion photography might, not be the best thing ever, but maybe you can learn something.
Absolutely. And I think it depends again on your style. The cameras are always going to influence the type of shooting you're doing. And I really like what you said about street photography, the fact that all of these people are basically, like that, at least that's how I heard it. They're a character in a story but they're not aware of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I completely see that. I completely see what you mean by that. But then when you show up to the scene with a big camera, everybody's aware of you now. Basically, they're all the characters of in a new story, in the story that they're all noticing you, in a way. And I feel like it could be interesting if you want to take candid shots with a large format camera, and because the camera is introducing this reaction to the scene.
Mm-hmm.
But
Exactly,
also,
yeah.
I've also seen some photographers, I can't remember the name now. There is a photographer who does 8x10 street photography, but then it's all not candid. It's all like he asks people for
To pose, yeah.
to pose for him. And that's a different type of street photography. Certainly not something that I'm interested in doing. I've done it. I've asked some people for portraits. Sometimes people ask me
When they see you with a camera.
if they see me with an RB or something, hey, can you take my photo? And I'm like, sure. But it's not why I'm out there taking photos.
Mm-hmm.
And things change. Of course, I had a look at your work, and in my head, I classified you in the same, camp as me. But that doesn't mean that you don't want to experiment or maybe like do a different project, or maybe I didn't see all your work. So again, I think that it depends. What do you want to do with it after all? And for sure, it's a completely different tool
Mm-hmm.
for a completely different job.
I think exploring those kind of, as you said, Karin, like those different combinations that might not make sense on the rule books, whatever rules there are, but they can actually open new possibilities and give you results that you didn't expect, and you might actually enjoy. I think the key is to experiment and to try different things as well. I remember when we uploaded the video with the Mamiya 645 going around the city, which wasn't that weird or anything. We got one of the comments is like, oh, that's the least choice I could think of to make street photography. I was like, why? I mean, it's not so big, it's not so difficult to carry around, and it's not so loud either, kind of. So yeah, like just try everything with everything, I would say. It would be really cool.
You do have a 645 camera, right? I think you have a Bronica.
The 6x6 or?
It's
No,
a-
it's 645.
Yeah.
6x5,
yeah.
okay.
how do you like it?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was the perfect choice for me, because I was actually thinking about, because I wanted to go get into large format camera. I wanted to get into large format and wanted to get a camera for that. And my first thought was to go like with something in 6x7, just because I really like the aspect ratio. But luckily I tried out the Mamiya RB67 of a friend earlier, and I just couldn't see myself shooting that kind of camera. I think sometimes, you have to double check the reality. And my reality is that I'm a small person who wants to have a large format camera also to bring out for a day of shooting, not only as a like kind of studio camera. And that wouldn't work for me. Like after the day of shooting with the RB, I was like dead for 3 days. I couldn't carry anything at all. Like, and the Bronica is, of course, people comment on like, when you get into medium format, why do you choose like a 6x5 camera? That's so stupid. And I'm just like, come on, it's about priorities and preferences, and my preference is to survive and be able to use my arms the next day, but still have like a good image quality. So I'm very happy with it, and I think it's a very beautiful system, and I still really, really enjoy using it.
Yeah, it's a great camera for portraits. I've seen the portraits you have taken with it, and even the portraits of your cat as well. And it's a very, very nice camera.
It's a good looking camera as well. It's
also,
a really nice piece of gear.
Also, and as she said, I mean, Karin, I never seen you in person, so I don't know in relative terms how big of a person you are, but I can say that it feels like a nice size camera for you going around and taking photos of people or the street as well. So I love our 645, even though it has that little quirk.
It does, like, for relative size, when you're holding 645, it looks like I'm holding the RZ.
Yeah, exactly. And when I hold the RZ, my arms also are dead, Karin. You're not the only one. I still have pain in my wrist from a video we shot 2 weeks ago. I mean, they're fun, but I agree with you that if you know yourself, and also you have to kind of play with what's comfortable for you. So
exactly. And honestly, like, come on, I think 6x5 is like a beautiful format as well, and I really cannot like understand the complaints why it should be like too small of a medium format size, because I think it's like beautiful. I mean, the aspect ratio is a bit like more standard than 6:7. It doesn't appear as square, but I think there's still like a specific beauty to it, and I don't see like anything wrong. And I think the images are big enough to be printed on a big scale. So I think image quality is not a KO criterium for a 6x5.
No, and absolutely. You get more photos out of each roll with it. You already don't get so many in medium format, which I like, because then you kind of have, you can finish a roll quicker.
Something came up in my head when you were talking about aspect ratio. What are your thoughts on cropping and editing, and where do you have any limitations? Do you put any limitations on yourself? Because I know a lot of people think that it's either completely okay or mandatory to completely edit your photos and work on them very like extensively, and or what you get is what you get. You only do color corrections. You shouldn't even consider cropping, all that stuff. How do you feel about these creative choices? What camp do you find yourself in?
I think that's a very interesting question. We could probably spend hours on, because I also remember the video Nick Carver did on the topic, which I think is very broad to talk about. But I think like generally I think it's a philosophical question rather than a like photographic question per se, because the question is like how you see, like as what kind of tool you see photography. If you see photography as a tool to kind of be the most honest and realist thing to try to kind of capture reality, then I can understand why you say that editing is like wrong or not the right thing. But me personally, and this is like super personal, and I totally understand when people disagree. For me, even with street photography, maybe not with documentary type photography, but even with street photography, I feel like it's still like an art form, and I have like a specific vision in my head, and I don't see why there's anything wrong with changing the image I have to get closer to the vision I have. And I'm not talking about like editing like new things into the image, but just like doing small cleanups. So I, for example, do edit my images like when I have like a slight tilt, but I would like to have it like straight. I do some minor cropping, and with scanning, what you get is not reality anyway. So the colors you get are not like the colors that exist anyway. So I think it's even good if you color correct the colors more to the color you want it to be or the color you saw. Mm-hmm. So I do that. But for example, for me, a line is crossed if I manipulate the image in such a way that it's not the original image anymore, if my message is to transport some sort of reality. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, if I'm just doing like, let's say, a crazy art piece and I use photography for that, I don't see why it's wrong to edit it. But if I try to be like, let's say, authentic in any way with my expression, like street photography, documentary photography, I try to keep the editing to a minimum to like just preserve like a believability, I don't know, like some authenticity and reality. But what do you think about the topic? I would be really interested to hear your thoughts about it.
I personally definitely agree with what you said. I feel like, I mean, for example, if you think of a multiple exposure, or you already crossed any lines. If you're comfortable doing a multiple exposure, then what's the problem with editing in post? And I definitely agree that it depends on what you're doing. So, for example, if I'm out there doing something creative, then a multiple exposure is on the table. So is post-processing, to whatever extent I choose to. And I always try, because I want to do less work, to take the photo straight and not tilted, not like this perspective is not falling in any way. But, sometimes the moment is more important than the perspective, and the perspective, you can fix it in post. You can't recreate the moment otherwise. So I definitely agree with that philosophy on the topic. And when it comes to colors and people saying that certain colors, certain films, if we're talking about film photography, there's a lot of debate on how colors are supposed to look, different film stocks are supposed to look. And I think it's a recurring theme on the podcast. I feel like I preach every week about this, that it's, as soon as you scan it, it's basic. Negative film is an interpretation. So
exactly.
Whatever you want to take it is up to you. What about you, Eva? What do you think?
I agree with you both. I think the limits, to me, at least, if I'm seeing photography or if I'm doing photography because I want to capture what's around me, I think the limits are putting things in or taking things out, like that blatantly whatever then I create is not something that was in front of me. If what I want to do is, create, capture the world around me, then the limits are there. But when it comes to, color processing, post-production, cropping, contrast levels, all that is within the realms of this is what it was in front of me and how I saw it and how it made me feel as well. We are trying, or at least I try to create images that can give out the feeling that I had when I was seeing that thing in front of me. And sometimes that might mean, if I feel like the composition or the things that I see in front of me are giving me this strong feeling, maybe I work more with the contrast, even though my eyes weren't seeing that contrast there, so you can play with that. And for cropping and stuff, I think that's totally, I see taking the photo or the photo in itself in your negative, it's a little bit of a blank canvas in a sense, and then that's your starting point, and then what do you do with that in order to create what you're trying to convey, so to speak. So I fall in the same realm as you. I don't think cropping your photos is a sin. and I really I think also part of me is because when a photographer also crops their picture, there is a thought process after taking the picture as well, right? And I really, really love when I get to see that process. For example, by seeing contact prints of how the photo was and then how they work with it to create the final piece that they wanted. Before, of course, there used to be prints and then you see the end result as a print. Now it could be the final digital photo that you made out of that negative. But seeing the original photo and then how the photographer or the artist thought about creating the piece that they wanted as the end result is a very interesting process for me.
So I'm going to take it a step further if you guys are interested. So for me, there's a separation between when somebody edits a photo heavily and so making a composite basically that still looks realistic. I think a good example to that would be somebody we learned about 3 weeks ago, or we studied more thoroughly their work.
Yeah.
Gregory Cruzon. I don't know if you're familiar with how much how much work goes behind the scene to get you've seen the photos. But we were talking about his work and, he said there was a documentary. Have you seen the documentary? What's it called?
I don't remember.
Sure CM in the chat will
Yeah, I'm
let
sure
us know.
he's there.
So he basically takes about 50 photos and does a composite of the scene, even though the whole scene is a set. And for me, I mean, when you reach that point, I feel like I can't complain anymore. Like if you're doing all that work, it's like I don't feel like I have a right to complain about such work. But then I've seen there's a lot of work where I see a lot on social media, and it's like it's not comparable to Gregory's work in a way, but it's like it's these composites that are sometimes they feel just too much to me, and in other times I see photos where it's obviously a composite because it doesn't make sense. It's not a real scene anymore. It's otherworldly. It's uncanny. And I find myself accepting the unrealistic stuff being pushed. I find myself accepting that, okay, I know that this was manipulated and I love the end result because there's no other way of getting it. But when I see something that can be achievable, but still was composite anyway, it just rubs me the wrong way. What is that something that makes any sense?
So I think maybe it's because it's the intention, right?
Yeah.
Like Gregory's intention from the beginning is to create those pieces, and that is within the process. So he knows his tools, he knows the limitation of his tools, he knows what result he wants and what he has to do with these tools to create that result. Be it something that is not real or that is real, like in this case, this created these imaginative scenes to tell stories. Whereas I feel like there is a difference when you try to fix something that you weren't able to get before, and then you end up with that result. Does it make sense what I mean?
I don't know. Yeah, I think I know what you mean. But I feel like sometimes it's just being done just because it's possible.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not part of the process of creating that image. It's just that, I have this, let's do this to it. Maybe it looks good in the end. It's the intention, perhaps. What do you think, Karin?
Yeah, I think I agree with you, actually, because also, I mean, Crutzen could basically do his work in post and could do like a manipulation, but it just wouldn't be the same, because I think first it would be like a different feeling, like because just like wouldn't work out the same way if you know that it's a set, I guess. And also I don't know, I think I cannot speak for him, but if he thinks like the same way, it's also about the process, as you said. And I think this is such a crucial part of the process to have it as a set that I don't like see any way why you would do it in post.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think we will also never know, like, if people do like these kind of things in post because they messed something up and try to like cover something up, or if it's like the intention. And I think that we just have to come to the borders of like what reality is, because we will never get to know the intentions if the people are not telling us them. So I think we just have to accept that we either like it or not, but all steps in the process are okay if, it's a conscious decision, but we will not know if it's a conscious decision from the other side,
Yeah,
true.
That's an important point, of course.
Definitely. I can be very cynical sometimes. All right,
but I was wondering, like, in your question, do you think it also has something to do with how much, let's say, attention or positive feedback somebody gets? Because I was wondering if it's also like a thought of, people do that kind of thing and manipulate, even though it's maybe less work than something that Crutzen is doing that is putting so much work into one piece, but the people who do it like the easy way still get like a lot of attention. Do you think it has something to do with that, or is it like independently of like the confirmation people get for the work?
Well, it bothers me in two steps. It bothers me when I see it, and then it bothers me if I see it celebrated. You know what I mean? Like it's like anything. It's like if I don't know how to make an example of this. I always think of music. But it's like, if you have a favorite artist that are kind of obscure and they make beautiful music, and then nobody knows about them, and you're like, this music artist is amazing. They deserve to be, they deserve more
praise.
I mean, not necessarily praise, but their talent must be celebrated.
Yeah.
The
or
world,
more people should
the
enjoy
world
it.
should appreciate this amazing work. And then you see something popular, and it's like, it makes me sad sometimes that it feels like the value of art sometimes is being too diluted. And it's like, if it keeps going in that trend, and I mean, look, it's just so weird of me to say that. Like, who am I to decide what's good and what's not? And, I can't decide for people that they should like this music artist or this photographer or, so I understand how stupid that sounds. But at the same time, I feel like I can't help but think, it's like, it's like thinking, okay, I don't want my kids to grow up in a world where public opinion is so in a direction that I disagree with. You know what I mean? I understand how stupid it sounds, but I feel like I should mention that it sounds stupid when I say it that way.
But I feel like I understand the point a bit better now, because at least for me, I think I have a very deep sense of justice sometimes. And in those situations, it feels like a bit injustice in a way, that people who really put a lot of work in maybe don't get the praise they deserve. And I feel that, and maybe it's stupid, maybe it's not, but I think that's also a human thing to feel injustice. And at least what kind of because I'm thinking this a lot about my favorite artists that I feel are not known enough, and I just feel how can that be? They're the most genius people in the world. Why does nobody know them? But if you think about this, most of the things in the world are distributed in a normal distribution, and the things that are popular kind of fit right in in the middle, right? So what's popular is for the masses, and if there's something very, very specific about it, it will just not fit there. It's just for the
the tails,
people on the edge. And I think it's, I don't know if me as an artist, and I'm not speaking about the channel, but just hypothetically, if I would even like to be somebody who could please the taste of everybody.
I mean,
so it could even be a compliment if you don't get the praise from everybody.
I can see that. Definitely makes sense. But it's hard to remember that sometimes when you see something that you dislike. But I like how you made it positive.
Definitely. Maybe we can talk a little bit now, since we already were a bit in the human condition, so to speak. You are a psychologist, and I am curious to know, how does your career and your studies in psychology affect your photography, but also perhaps how your road and journey in photography has helped you understand humans better or worse? I don't know. What can you tell us about that?
So point number one, how it affects it, is that I just have not enough time for creativity. It has to be said, sorry, but just having a job, and that's also important to me, sometimes cuts out on the free time and leeway you have for creating things. But I think I said this before in a video, and I don't want to repeat myself, but I think this is the core point, that even though, because psychology at least in Germany, is considered a science, so it's a scientific sort of educational path I chose, why creativity is pretty much, people think, on the other spectrum of science, right? But for me, it really goes hand in hand together, and I feel there's so much overlap between psychology as a science and art in general. And not only because I'm a psychologist who's currently undergoing training to become a psychotherapist, which means that I am in the field working with humans a lot, and trying to understand human behavior, human emotion, and in the end also hopefully be able to help people. But also the science part about psychology, that does not only have to do with humans per se, or just psychopathology per se, but just with thinking and processing in general, I think go hand in hand together so well. And I think also like with psychology, you have so much creative freedom to choose what you like. And for example, like right from the get-go, I was like super interested to learn more about creativity as a nature, like what creativity is, what drives people to be creative, like how you can measure creativity, even if it's, an individual thing, or if creativity is just another package for intelligence, or how it all works. And I think this was like super interesting that I could use my studies to understand creativity better. And then in the end, I think also like improve how I personally try to get my creativity out.
And what can you tell us about that? What have you learned or found about creativity?
I was actually thinking to maybe in the future dedicate a whole video to this, because I just find it so fascinating. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like creativity is one of the things that's most misunderstood by like interpretation of common nature, like what people think about creativity. I think like the most cliche thing that people think about creativity is like creative behavior, which means that you have to do something creative to be creative. Like you have to be a painter, you have to be a musician, you have to do something to be creative. And while I see that, I don't think that this is the core key to creativity, but it starts way, way, way earlier, because it starts with creative thinking, like a creative thought process. And there are so many things that you can do to be creative that do not include like some sort of creative performance, creative outlet, but like all thinking decisions that are maybe a little bit more different to the like public, or a little bit less common, are creative. And just understanding that creativity is like something small, it doesn't have to be something big, that alone kind of changed my mind on what creativity can be.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And you mentioned before how a lot of people think that art and science are in opposite sides of the spectrum, but I think they are not. And actually, the thread that connects art and science is actually creativity, because you are constantly thinking about how you are either in creating stuff or creating knowledge. It's almost the same. It's the same process in your brain that you go through, and how you can make things happen either physically or conceptually as well. And I think it took me a while to understand why I was so attracted both to science and to other forms of art. Photography or painting is something that's been with me the whole life, even if I wasn't doing it. And I think during my research studies, I realized that the way that you think and the way that you use creativity is very similar in both science and art. So I find very interesting your point of like how you don't really have to make something in order to be a creative person, because it's all about how you think.
I think you couldn't have put it better. I think this is like exactly what I think as well. It's like the thread that's kind of connecting art and science. And also, I think it's an underrated value in society today, not to sound like super pathetic, but everything that brings us forward sparked from one like creative outlet, from one creative idea. And I think we just like need people who have like the brain power to come up with newness, who are not afraid to think, not even outside the box, but to create different boxes, to create something else, right? And I found it like super interesting, because in my thesis, like it was my bachelor's thesis, because in my master's thesis, I tried to like find a common ground between psychopathology, so like mental illness, and creativity. But in my bachelor's thesis, I tried to see how creativity is kind of put out in people who cannot in that matter perform creatively yet. So I like conducted a study where I tried to see if like adolescents, how they perform in creativity, because they usually are not famous musicians, are not famous painters, like if they're like 14 years old. So how can you still measure creativity in that sense? And I thought that this is like really interesting, that it starts really early on, and you can actually like measure creativity very early on.
I guess this, when I think about it, it's a bit like, do you think curiosity and creativity are hand in hand? And it's something that you know from very early on, being kids, when you're experimenting with everything around. You are curious about the world around you. You want to learn how things work. You learn about the world by interacting with it and making assumptions that then they might be tested and then they might be accepted or rejected. That's how we learn about the world around us. Is that what ignites creativity and what it goes together with creativity?
I think at least it's an important part. So like in psychology, we talk about like, or there's like different theories about like what personality is and what kind of our personality is constructed of. And one key model is the Big Five model, where you have like 5 main personality traits. And one of them is actually called openness to experience, which I would translate as curiosity, as you said it. And that is like heavily correlated with creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it makes sense.
Yeah, then I think it would be good to really don't let people lose their curiosity, because I think it's a human nature to be curious, and I think it's just the world we live in that kind of suppresses a little bit that trait.
And here I think we can kind of align with the topic we started at the beginning, because I think this is also why it pairs so nicely with photography, because I think there's like almost no other tool that makes us so curious, or that can help us to be so curious about the world, about different people, because you can be curious about objects if you like take photos of objects or do like, product photos. You get curious about landscapes if you go out in nature and try to explore that. You get curious about people, try to seek moments. And I think it's just such a broad genre that lets you dive into very different things to be curious about. And I think, I don't know if you have noticed that, but I'm like not a person who's stuck to one genre in photography, because I do not only do street photography and I do not only do like portraits or whatsoever, because I just feel like this would limit myself. And I'm so curious about so many things that I just want to jump into everything and explore everything. And at least for me, it helps to not limit myself to one kind of path, but to just be open to different things. But I also understand why people say, I want to deep dive into one thing, learn it properly, be like an expert in one thing. So I think it's just like 2 different approaches to basically the same curiosity.
I couldn't help but think of a quote. I think it was Yoel Meyerowitz. I don't know if he said it or if he was quoting someone when I heard him say it,
Mm-hmm.
but he said something along the lines like, as photographers, we have the license to see. And I just love that so much for some reason. I don't know. It just makes so much sense.
And that's a beautiful phrase. You should have that printed on T-shirts, I guess.
Right.
Let's start a merch store.
Copyrights to Meyerowitz.
Yeah.
But I think, about the topic of creativity, I think something you were saying made me think of, like I was trying to put my finger on it, because I know people, are trying to define it and measure it, and, it's not a solved issue yet. And I feel like, sometimes like you hear the phrase, that's the creative solution to a problem, for example. And I feel like, that kind of, to me at least, summarizes the whole thing. It's just like, I like what you guys mentioned about curiosity and the openness to experience. And I think it's just not being afraid to try something that you don't know for sure is going to work or not. It's about, because sometimes things, like when the TV breaks, you slap it for whatever reason, but then you start to, and that's like a common sense, even though it doesn't make sense, but everybody for some reason slaps the TV when it breaks down. But then you start, when it doesn't work, you start to, get creative with your solution.
Yeah.
I think that's the way of saying it. You might try a few other obvious things, like turn it off and turn it back on, but then you start, maybe that wasn't the best example, but what I'm trying to say
you
is,
open it, check
I
this
feel
inside,
like there's an element of not giving up as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's like knowing that something could come out of this thing, even though you have no guarantee if it is or it isn't.
I also think, I think creativity, or like being creative, it could come into many levels, and for some people it might be easier than for others. So one key overarching theme of creativity is doing things differently in a way, I guess. And for some people, finding these creative solutions is the first thing that comes to their mind, because whatever reasons, maybe how they have been trained their minds or how their minds work. I think, I don't know, Karin, I really don't know about psychology, almost anything. So this is just what I think, and correct me if you think I'm wrong or if you know more about the topic. But for some people it might be easier, for some people it might be more difficult. And then the creativity comes from perseverance and for like not giving up and like trying different things and really like put it out there. So I think it might be different for different people.
Yeah, absolutely, because it has to like relate directly to the temperament, which is what Karin mentioned, the openness to experience.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the key factors, because if you know there was this, I really love this advertisement. It was a Pampers advertisement, like the diapers for babies. And it was like this baby running towards the stairs, and the mother shouts no, because she's afraid that they're going to fall off the stairs. And then it's cut scenes during his life as he grows up. It becomes a man, a teenager, a man, an old man.
Yeah.
And he's always, whenever he's facing a staircase, he's standing there and never goes up on the staircase. So I think I mean, that's not creativity, but it's just a part of who you are.
That's something might hinder you.
And that is, it definitely is that your brain would jump to the most random thing rather than the most obvious thing.
Like one interesting thing I would like to add, that because I mean the ad sounds pretty creative, to be honest. Like, I thought it was really interesting that both of you like mentioned that they think creativity is some sort of problem-solving skill, because you cannot imagine how many definitions I had to read for my thesis to like about creativity to really sum it up. And I think this is the one that kind of stick with me the most, to say that creativity, like if you dilute it down, is in fact a problem-solving skill, but it is a problem-solving skill on many levels. You can solve like problems if you have many ideas, just the pure amount of ideas. Then you can solve problems because you shift to different topics regarding the idea, like have different categories for the ideas. Or you can just be like very original in your problem solving skill, which is I think the kind of creativity that most of us relate to. But you can also be creative by just having a very elaborate kind of deep understanding of a problem. And I think this is really, really nice to just see that it is in fact a problem solving skill. And what at least because of course it has to do like let's say your base level of creativity has something to do with who you are as a person. But what kind of stuck to me the most when I was like researching creativity is that it is in fact a habit. Like creativity is not a thing that you are born with, but it is a habit to just constantly expose yourself to problems, solve these problems, and by that kind of get an understanding of other problems. So I thought this like blew my mind when I understood creativity is not a thing that you just own or you just have and you're like incapable of changing the level of creativity, but it is a habit, like a muscle that you can train. You can train to be creative. And I think this is like, you can feel that I'm very enthusiastic about this topic, but I just feel like this is so mind-blowing to see that creativity is a muscle. You can train it and you can just become more creative by being creative. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah,
it's very cool.
It's
indeed.
very nice. I think I also read somewhere sometime that creativity is a muscle. You just have to like do it, and at the beginning it might be harder when you are not familiar with those processes, but then you try more, and then it's kind of like, imagine that you have this big backpack, your hiking backpack, and as you go through the creativity journey, you just keep putting things in your backpack, and then the next time you found a problem, you have these things that you worked with before that's going to help you to be more creative about it. So, and I think for photography in particular, and when we talk with people that are just starting, that are like, oh, I feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I feel like I don't know how to do something different or something creative. It's like, well, imitate, try different things. What do you like? Go out there. All this training, get comfortable with the gear, of course, yeah. So all those things are very intertwined together, and is a wonderful tool to have.
Yeah, this is, I think, Karin, you might be running into this maybe at some point, especially now that you got a new camera that is complicated and it's really nerve-wracking to use in the beginning. the large format. I talked about this last week. I was saying that sometimes like, for example, with the RB67, when I first got it, it was so cumbersome to use, especially after being used to a digital camera. And I use the Olympus EM10, which is a tiny little camera. I love it so much. And it has image stabilization, and it's, it's like, it allows me to do so many things. I go everywhere unnoticed. And, I have a 1.8 lens on it. And now, boom, I have this big, heavy camera, no stabilization. I didn't even have a viewfinder. I'm looking through the waist level, so everything is going the other way. You've had, I think, when you used the first SLR with no prism, all of us had a similar experience. And, it's cumbersome. Everybody sees you, and you're losing stops of light because you don't have f1.8 anymore. Now, with large format, you're probably working with f5.6 and razor sharp depth of field, so you might need to stop down. The image is upside down, so it's even a step further than the mirror. And you already had an experience, right? How did you feel? How did you feel about this specific area in the experience? Struggling with this new tool that, even though you understand what photography is, even though you're completely, let's say, fluent with your rangefinder and with your medium format camera, even like it's an extension of your hand. You don't even think about what you're gonna do because you used it so much, and it now allows you to be creative. How do you feel your experience was using this completely new tool, and how do you anticipate your adaptation? And do you think there will be any limitations on it, or do you think, what do you think it takes for you to be able to use a large format camera like you use your rangefinder, if that makes any sense?
So I think, like in this case specifically, it is different if you use a camera and try to get it to work like on your own, or if you have like an instructor or somebody helping you. And like my first experience in large format was like with a friend who's like really experienced in large format, and shout out to Heiner because he's a really cool guy
and his
who
dog.
helped me.
His dog
Sorry?
also.
And shout out to him
And his dog.
dog.
Yeah, exactly. Who was the real star, right? Everybody was there for the dog. So I think it's different because there I felt like I already was like 10 steps in without even touching the camera because I got like so much information. But still, I feel like every time I get to use a new tool, I get super excited because it's like so new, because I will have to like explore it and get to know all the like different quirks and everything. And I like both about cameras, that it can become like, the extension of your hand or like of your body at some point, like with my M6 for example. I feel like it became the case on the street, but I also like the novelty when I get to play around with a new camera and like, as you say, kind of experiment on what the limit is. And currently I like just today a friend borrowed me like his large format camera, and I will probably keep it for a couple of weeks or months. And this is like a totally different large format camera, so I know that I will do all the exploring on my own, and I'm super scared of it because I just think I will definitely put some sheets to waste. But on the same time, I'm like really curious to just fiddle around with it, like learn everything, like see what happens if I touch this, see what happens if I do this and stuff like that. And like my experience is that there is a learning curve, and probably after like 4 or 5 batches of developing, it will not feel so unfamiliar, but I just enjoy the unfamiliarity about new gear. And probably that's also why we are also addicted to it, because it's so exciting to play around with new gear.
Definitely. We are in this house. We also love new cameras.
I'm so curious to know what the camera is. You said you want to keep it a secret for now, but I can't wait to
see
learn,
the video.
to see the video and see which one.
Yeah, but honestly, I think I'm just not telling it now because I know that I have like so many different projects in line that I just have to finish first, that it will take some weeks until I properly get to take it out. And I don't want to like say, oh, I got this large format camera to borrow, and then like throw out a video like half a year later, because it will probably take some time until I feel like comfortable to do something with it. So I just don't want to, promise something I cannot hold right now. I'm just playing with it once it's time, and then you will see it. But I can tell you maybe after the stream what it is if you're curious.
Cool.
Before we continue, I just wanted to mention a comment that Christy left because it's very nice. So Christy wrote a quote actually. Nothing exists until or unless it is observed. An artist is making something exist by observing it. And his hope for other people is that they will also make it exist by observing it. I call it creative observation, creative viewing, from William Burroughs. So it really fits very nice what we're talking about.
It's really nice.
Really
doesn't fit on a t-shirt, but it's still a nice quote you can frame up.
Exactly, for sure. Very, very
Maybe
nice.
on the back of a t-shirt.
Yeah, a good plan. Guess we have the merch settled right now, right?
For sure.
You want to jump into another question, maybe from Instagram? We have one. Somebody asked about the situation of film photography in Germany. What are your thoughts about it? How is it like? Is it, are there labs around? Is it easy to get film? Is it easy to get stuff developed and scanned and stuff like that? As like your personal experience, basically.
I think it would be easier if I would have like something to compare it with. So I can just speak about Germany because this is the situation I know, but I don't know if it's like better or worse compared to like different countries. But at least here, I think it's still okay to get film. They have it like in drugstores, at least like a very, very like limited palette of film, just like one black and white stock, one color stock, which is Kodak Gold. You can get it. But currently, I think people go crazy because the Kodak Gold is sold out like everywhere in Germany. You cannot really get it, which I think is freaking people out right now. But generally, I think like where I live, there is not really a good like possibility to develop your film. But in the like big cities, for example, Berlin has like plenty of opportunities. You can also ship your film to. And I met up with the guys from a photo lab in Berlin like just a couple of weeks ago who do fantastic work also to save the film community and to help out, which is a lab called Safe Light Berlin, which I can absolutely recommend because they do really, really great stuff. So I think the bigger cities are all right, but if you're in a smaller city, it can get hard and you would have to ship your film. And usually, at least in like big cities like Berlin and Munich, I have seen like dedicated analog photo stores, like for example, the one I mentioned before. But usually it's like a digital camera store where they have like a very tiny small analog section, which is not as satisfying if you go out to check out some like analog cameras and then they have nothing. But I think, I don't know about Sweden, how the situation is there right now, but I think probably it's similar to a lot of countries, right?
We get everything from Germany.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Really? I was gonna say Germany probably a little bit better because we buy most of the stuff from Germany.
Yeah. No,
but what and where do you buy?
Photo Impacts.
Photo Impacts, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we buy online and we also buy from a store, and it's funny because sometimes I go to the store and I see the same boxes that I get.
Because they also get from Germany.
I see the tape that says Photo Impacts on it. So, I think Photo Impacts is the main distributor in Europe.
Yeah.
So Germany is, as far as I know, is one of, at least in Europe, is one of the best places for that kind of stuff, for film photography.
Are they silver salts in Germany?
I think so. Yeah. And I think
Orwo. Yeah, I think so.
Orwo is in Germany
is
as
in
well.
Germany. I don't know.
I think, and I'm pretty sure that Adox is a part of Photo Impacts.
The Silver Grain Classics people are in Germany as well. So I would say, if I would have to say a country of analog photography in Europe, since UK is out of Europe already, I would say Germany.
Yeah, I mean, besides UK, Germany is the
Germany
is the place.
Also, to me, if we think Germany it has a lot of creativity, creative people or people doing arts as well. I know a lot of people doing all sorts of arts that they actually go to do residencies in Germany as well. So I always feel like it's a very artistic country.
There's a few things that only exist in terms of Europe that only exist in Germany. You have, for example, the 20 by 24 Polaroid in Berlin. The only other one is in New York. You have also, when I did my search online looking for a dye transfer print, the only place I was able to find is in Germany. So if you're interested,
it's like a lab doing that,
it's a lab in the middle of nowhere in
but
Germany.
By the way, I love those fun facts. Usually people know like random fun facts about all kind of topics like they can show off at parties, and Jimmy is like the person who can show off with all the like analog photography fun facts. Oh, you know what? Where the only 20 to 24 Polaroid camera is? Berlin.
It's just so cool. I have,
It's
I
really
love
cool.
Polaroids, and the fact
Yeah.
that there is this giant camera, and the people who operate it are really cool. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube about
It needs two people to take the photos.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think there has to be like a master apprentice, just because if something happened, somebody at least knows how to operate that room of a camera. They're so cool. They do so much cool work with it.
yeah.
I love the...
But also, if
Sorry,
you
go ahead.
love photo impacts, you should come visit like Berlin as well, because they have like a physical store. Like
Yeah.
Photo Impacts has a store, and it's like really nice to just go and look at all the film. They have like a huge film stash, and you can buy like film holders, chemicals, trays, everything. It's like pure heaven, and you go out broke, and it's so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get all our darkroom things from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shout out to Bruno Bildverkstad in Stockholm. I
it's
love
really
that store. They're super nice to me as well.
Yeah.
And
That's our reference store here. In
yeah,
Sweden.
and sometimes I get stuff like this that doesn't exist anymore. This is a Rollei CR 200 color reversal.
Wow.
Yeah, he has like a fridge where he's like, I can't sell these anymore. They're expired. Do you want them?
Whoa! Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's the good context you should save for sure.
Yeah, they're very nice. They also give us broken cameras in case we can fix them.
Yeah. And actually, my first large format experience, I borrowed what's it called, the Linhof.
A Linhof, yeah, they let us
They
borrow.
lend us a Linhof for 2 weeks. It's like
to test it and
Have
try it.
fun.
No, they're super nice, super nice. If you ever come to Stockholm, get some film there.
Yeah.
Just to keep it going.
So speaking of printing and dye transfer and stuff like that, how has been your experience with prints?
Yeah, because you have some prints in your website I saw, and in one of your videos I learned that you also have sold some prints. So what's your experience printmaking and selling prints?
Do you mean like darkroom printing or just like inkjet, or doesn't it matter? Or
both? I don't know which ones are the ones that you are. I read that they were on Hallenmühle paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the prints that I did as a little like print sale were like inkjet prints that I did on like fine art paper, because at one point I just thought I print like my images for myself a lot, just because I feel like this is kind of I feel like end product sounds like a bit negative, like it doesn't supposed to be like this is the end and this is like the product and now I'm finished, but it feels like it's the end goal in this tactile like process. So I just like to have like my images printed, and then at some point like friends ask me, oh, can I have this like framed up, do you sell them? So I started to like ask on Instagram if people would actually be interested, because once I kind of get printing, then it does only make sense like to do it also on a bigger scale. So I did like a very short like a very limited run of prints, just like 3 images with 10 prints each. But maybe, I don't know, I do prints on commission. So if people want to have like an image printed, they can just like ask me and we can figure something out. Just happy if people are interested. And I'm pretty sure that we will agree on like one level or the other. But yeah, I think like about inkjet printing, I don't do it myself. I like give it to people like a printing company, and they print it like on good paper, and then I just try to not break anything and put on gloves and handle it like nicely. But about like darkroom printing, I have to confess I'm lazy currently, and I haven't used a darkroom for a long time. But actually, this is like where my passion for photography kind of started, because I was as you know, I also spent some time in Scandinavia, and I was like in Oslo, where they have like one of the biggest dark rooms in Scandinavia actually, and this is where I started like shooting film and where I started printing. So I really like was deep into printing and printed a lot in the dark room. When I got back to Germany, I didn't have a dark room for the longest time. I wasn't able to like print any physical things, and then at some point I moved and I had the space to set up a dark room. So I have one now, but it's a kind of cold and messy space. So once I don't clean it properly, then I will have to clean everything to get it going and to like start again. And it's been like a couple of months without any printing, but I hope that I can get back to it, like maybe in autumn when it's not as hot and down there anymore.
So you're doing black and white stuff at home.
Yeah, only black and white.
I think I just had this idea while I was listening to you, because we have a enlarger that is not so good, actually. It's really bad, to be honest with you, and I hate it. I got it for like 10 euros, so I can't complain. But it leaks light all over the place. So when I turn it on, it shoots more light around.
It's a light fountain instead of a, like a light.
It shoots light to the wall more than it shoots it on the directly
paper.
on the paper. And I taped it, but I'm afraid it's gonna catch on fire. So I was thinking, to make a box like a UV box, where we can do like stuff more like cyanotypes and alternative processes and stuff like that. And I can't remember right now. I'm sure somebody in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what's it called? Platinum palladium.
Yeah.
Is a UV sensitive
UV
product.
sensitive product.
Yeah. So maybe like this is something that can be done with less hassle.
Yeah.
Because you can just do it basically in open light, as long as the windows are closed. So you don't have to completely shut everything down. You can do.
It's a bit more comfortable.
It's especially if you're doing like contact prints.
Contact printed, yeah.
Then you can just make a box
with your 4x5
and
maybe.
and put the 4x5, sandwich it on a platinum palladium coated paper, and then you have. And I mean, to be honest with you, it looks amazing.
I love the blacks. Really nice. I love cyanotype though. So
I do love cyanotype too as well. I'm just saying that the box can be used for. Devin in the chat is talking about Matt Marash, also a fellow YouTuber.
Yeah.
He did. I was watching it live when he did the.
Yeah, we saw it. It was fun.
Yeah. So this is maybe just an idea that you might be interested in trying out.
For the winter time.
I don't know if you thought about it, or maybe it's less hassle to do than. I think it might be more expensive than normal printing, because the salts are expensive. The material.
I don't know about the cost actually. I didn't look into
but
that.
it's definitely something.
It's really pretty.
I just thought I should mention it because it popped in my head.
I'm actually curious now that we're talking about alternative processes. I know that you have dabbed a little bit with that by doing what you did, the 1 year long beer can camera solography. What?
I think Eva is broken.
Have you tried turning her on and off again?
For sure. Solography. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I really, really love that project, and I love the photos because I really love to see these like sun trails and stuff like that. And it's a little bit of an alternative process of sorts. It's not a straight still photography kind of thing. I'm curious to ask you a little bit more about the idea of doing this and how did you live through it and what did it mean to you to do this kind of project?
So, I mean, this is not like my unique idea. There have been like people doing this before. It's, I think if you like Google a bit about it, there's like even Facebook groups who do that. So this was not like my idea. I'm not like a genius that I come up with it or anything. I just initially wanted to try it as I was like staying in Scandinavia, because I thought, whoa, this is like a country where it's where you have like super big differences between the sunrise, like in summer and in winter, because like you probably know that when you're staying in Sweden, that the winters are very dark and the summers are very bright. And I just kind of wanted to have like some sort of memory of that and some sort of I don't know, physical way to remember that. So I built those cameras back then when I was like in Norway, and built like so many, like I cannot even remember how many I built, because I was just like, I don't know when I will ever have a dark room. This is like the proper place to do it. I will just build so many cameras of like beer can cameras just to like give to people, and just so I have like some as a backup in case I feel like I want to do that. And yeah, so I did that like in Scandinavia, and when I came back to Germany, I just had some left, and I handed like some to family, to my cousin who lives like in a cool place actually, which is like here on this image, and had like some left, which I thought would maybe be a nice idea to hang around like the house that I'm living currently, because I just moved in and I thought, well, you know, I want to also have like some long-term project to just have something physical that I'm living like in this place right now. And I don't know, I think it's just a cool reminder to see like one static images that represents a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I mean,
so cool.
it's really, really cool. I'm actually curious, when I was watching the process, you say you put the photography paper in, you leave it for the year, and then when you are gonna get the picture, you don't do anything to the paper. You put it directly into the scanner and scan it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't develop it because it will turn all black.
What kind of paper is it?
It's usual darkroom paper, but I did not use multigrade paper, but one with like a set strength. So I think this is like grade 3 or something.
But
Like, and it can also be like a bit older, foggy paper. It doesn't have to be fresh paper because you don't develop it anyway.
But without developing, you still see an image. I was like, wow, what?
I didn't really look into this process, but it's black and white paper. I've heard about people getting. So did you add the colors or?
Yeah, it is black and white paper, but you have to imagine that it's kind of. It looks like the negative looks actually like a more or less like a color negative because it's like brownish and not like black and white. And the colors just come from the scan. Like it's the colors are not there in like real life.
Okay.
And I think I'm also showing in the video that I'm doing like a lot of adjusting to just get the details out because it's hard to see anything like
it's really cool. It's
without like editing.
I've heard of this process. I can't remember what it's called, but some people get color from black and white paper. It has to be specific old black and that doesn't exist anymore. And they develop it in a certain way, and they don't get accurate colors, but they get like random colors, kind of like. And I thought maybe this is something similar.
It's just so cool because it's just like that. You put it and then you take the paper, you put it in the scanner, and you
kind of like a
photo.
cyanotype.
Yeah, exactly. So this is why it reminds me because I really like cyanotype, and when I was seeing this, because the first thing that I saw was the thumbnail, and then it really looks like it's a mix of photo with cyanotype, and then I already knew about that these streaks are the sun, and it's like, oh, that's so cool, and it's just it's a very nice long-term project, and I'm very happy to hear that it was, that the weird light situation in Scandinavia is what drove you to create this project, because I can relate so much as well. It's great. You
definitely have a very positive outlook on things, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's true.
You want to jump into some of the photos that you shared with us?
Yes, for sure.
Since we're already looking at some of your work, we asked you to share some photos with us that means something to you, or have a story that you want to tell us about. So I'm gonna go to the first one.
Yeah. So I thought it would be fun to bring this because this image is like a representation or a reminder maybe for me to just always bring a camera, like always bring a camera, because currently I live in a like rather smallish city in Germany, and I live like a bit outside of the city center, so it's like a more like rural, quiet family area with a lot of like fields and trees and not so many people, luckily also not so many neighbors, which is good. But it's like a quiet area, and usually I would like, when I just like every time I go out, I would like pass the same kind of streets and the same kind of nothingness, I would say. And sometimes I'm just too lazy to bring a camera because I'm thinking like there's nothing happening anyway, maybe I will meet like 3 people and that's it, so why shall I bring a camera? And I was like on one of those walks just with my flatmates, going to grab a coffee somewhere. And I thought, well, I could just bring my camera just in case. But I know I will probably not take any photos, or maybe of the same tree. I take a photo every time, but nothing more than that. But I brought my camera, and I was so lucky that I did, because then this guy with the like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dogs passed. And I was like, I don't ever see people here. There's like nobody, and then there's like this guy with the 5 dogs, and I was so happy that I brought my camera. And also because you have to imagine emptiness, there's nothing, and then there's like, I don't know if we were 3 or 4 people passing, and then the guy with the dog and me with my camera in my hand, and I just felt like I want to take a picture, but also it's like a bit creepy if there's like nobody else and I take a street photo of this one guy who will not see any more people for some meters. And then I kind of thought, well, I will just do it anyway. I will not shoot from the hip. I will bring the camera to my eye, but I will try to be a tiny little bit like behind one of my flatmates. And it created the effect that you can still see like the hand of my flatmate in the corner. And I think without this, the image wouldn't work as well. I think it almost looks like there's a combat or there's a battle happening or something like dangerous because of the dogs and the hand. And I'm kind of happy that I capture it that way and that I brought my camera. So for me, it's just a reminder, even if you go grocery shopping, doesn't matter, bring your camera.
Absolutely. Yeah, right, for sure. I struggle sometimes with that, but good reminder.
It's so cool. What about this one?
I brought this one because this, I think, was my very, very first street photo I ever took. Like, I can remember that I had my very first like proper camera, which was a Nikon D5000 or something, like a cheap entry DSLR. And I was on a trip to Paris, and I just remember that I brought it to like take memory pictures to like remember the trip with my friends. And when we were on the street, I saw this lady like with the broken head, and I was like, oh my God, this is like such a fascinating character. And I didn't even think about it. I just took the photo. And like years later, I think I must have been 15, 16 at the time, like super young. And to this day, it almost like swirled in my head, like, oh, I took this photo, but I didn't even know what street photography was. It just felt like I have to take a photo of this lady with the hat. And now, I can understand, oh, I think this was like my first street picture. But back then I just didn't get it. I was just too young, too naive. But I think it's interesting to see that I was drawn to similar things that still interest me today. Because if I saw the lady today with the broken head, also like in the posture of looking at her watch, I would probably take the same picture.
Do you remember what lens were you using when you took this picture?
I think it was the kit lens, like the 18 to 55 or something.
Nice.
It looks very nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't sure if it was film or not.
No, it was digital, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it looks really sharp for I assumed you were shooting with a prime as a beginner.
Yeah.
That's why I was asked, like you said you got it with you for to remember the trip. But it's really nice. It looks like you've been doing this for a while. It wouldn't strike me as your first street photo. Really.
I think it was the kit lens. I don't think I had any other lenses back then when I was starting out. I don't know what I can say about this one, but I think this is just an image that I really like, and that kind of, at least for me, was also like the start to be a bit more experimental with photography as well, because this is like a double exposure that I took of a friend with the gas mask. And I just thought that the story behind it is also a tiny bit funny, because we were like at a market and I didn't have like any money with me, but I saw the gas mask and I was like, I don't know why, but I have to buy it. I want to buy it and I want to take some pictures with it. I don't know why, but let's just do it. And I didn't have any money with me. My friend didn't have any money with me. The next city was like, I think 5 kilometers away. So we walked to the next city, withdrew money and went back so I could buy the gas mask.
Well, you got a great picture. So that's all that matters.
It's I really like how, I mean, the gas mask in itself, if you had taken just a photo of the person with the gas mask, it would have like this mystery and this darkness to it. But I think the fact that you decided to do this multiple exposure with the different focal length as well, and the different framing, I think it brings even more that darkness and that mystery. It feels like when you like these flashbacks to a scene that they cannot blend together. So it's like this is happening and you see it in flashes. This is the vibe that this photo 100%. Gives me. So it's really, really cool work. It's like that kind of
like
feeling.
You're thinking of movies when somebody's like being tortured by their thoughts.
And also, like, this was more or less an accident, because I did not. I think I accidentally triggered the multiple exposure mode, and I thought like I had like one conscious multiple exposure, but the one afterwards was not, and this was like the accidental one. And I think it's also like a good, or it would be an interesting topic to talk about. Is it still art if it's not all conscious, and if it was like an accident and blah blah blah? You know what I mean? But I think I don't know, like why shouldn't it be like considered work if it happened by accident? I think we should maybe embrace those accidents more. I feel like people are judgy about accidents. Oh, you didn't do it on purpose, it's not conscious, so it's nothing. But maybe this is also like accidents spark creativity.
Hey,
right?
I mean, radiographs were an accident, so
Yeah, radiographs were an accident. For sure.
Exactly.
I mean, it's Bob Ross, he said, there's no accidents, there's happy mistakes. And then you just like made them part of your...
and now I feel better about the time when I shot, when I thought I finished the roll, but I was only shooting the same frame over and over on the RB67 because I accidentally triggered the multiple exposure. And I went on a walk and I was like, ooh, I'm capturing all these cool street moments. And it was after a long slump, I was like, I couldn't get myself to press the trigger in public for some reason because of the city I was living in. I was so bored of it. And one day I was like, I got all the courage and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna shoot a black and white roll, and that's it. And I go out and I'm snapping, boom, 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 I'm in the zone. And then I reach the 10th frame and I'm counting the frames because I'm shooting so fast. And I reach the 10th frame and I wind and I expect it to keep going. And I'm like, oh no, it doesn't want to keep going because the shutter is already cocked. And I look at the frame counter and it says 1.
Oh, I feel you so bad. Yeah.
I guess here like I can tell the story because it's also a little bit like that when I shot the same roll through 2 different cameras.
Oh, yeah, I know
that was kind of reason. This happened to me because I had a roll of Fuji Superia in a point and shoot, and I had taken 15 photos.
Yeah.
And that some point and shoots, they unwind the whole roll out and then they start taking photos as the roll comes into the canister. So if that were the case in that camera, which I thought, that means that only the end of my roll is...
Hold on, you have to explain something. The camera broke after 15 frames.
Yeah, so exactly.
So I took it apart, and it was my mistake. I told her, I think this one is counting down. So you shoot the first 15 frames, and then you stop and you take the film out.
Yeah, so like then I can still use that roll because I also wanted to take just few pictures with my new Olympus Pen F, like half frame. So I thought, oh, that's perfect. Then I don't have to use a whole frame because I'm never going to finish 72 pictures. So if I can shoot 36 only, which is half, it would be nice. So I take that roll, I put it through the FT, and then we finish it, we develop it, and I take out the roll from the developing tank, and there's half of the roll is empty, and then the other half is double exposure in 2 different cameras. One of them a half frame and the other one a normal one. And I actually scanned it just to see like what it looks. And there is one particular frame which I love, and I love it so much that I even think I want to print that photo. Yeah. I really like it, and yeah, it was accidental, completely accidental. I had no intention whatsoever. The 2 photos independently would have been very nice photos too, but the fact that they are double exposure and they are together, I love it. Yeah. I just posted on Instagram recently if anybody's interested.
I completely agree
Nice.
that both of you should embrace it. It's like, I just want to remind you of the drawing exercise that I mentioned earlier. So
yeah, I love it. I'm watching at it right now. I really like it.
don't use your phone.
No.
All right. So what can you tell us about this one?
I think there's not such a big story, but just that when I was in Japan, I was taking photos as well and trying to get like street photos while being there and using like the big Tokyo like nights and colors to come up with something. And I actually don't know why there's like these 2 white stripes there. Mm-hmm. I have no idea if it were like light leaks, if it was like something in front of the lens. I cannot like remember how the image looked like, but it came out like this. And I think this is just also maybe an example of a funny or happy little accident that happened, because I don't know how it happened, but I kind of like that it's like framing up the subject with the white stripes. And also I just saw your text that you have been to the same places where I have been to in Japan, right?
Yeah, I just texted because seeing the photos she sent us, I remind myself that I wanted to comment to her that we went exactly to the same places. Like we did probably the same trip, just in different...
Probably, yeah.
So when I saw the video on YouTube, so sorry that you actually... So you know what happened? I can tell you, I don't know if you watched that video, but she went to Japan and she took film photos, beautiful film photos, and then she took digital footage. And then I think it's correct that your SD card got corrupt or something, and then you lost a lot of the footage.
Yeah, and I lost the SD card where I took all of my like time lapses on. I was like focusing a lot on time lapses. I did like a lot of time lapsing and was all corrupt and a lot of footage as well. And I was like so frustrated. I threw like the whole project into the corner and I didn't look for like on it like for so long. Just didn't do anything with it. And at some point I was like, oh, whatever, I can just take a look and see what's there.
But with the little footage you did still have, and you made that short video, but very, very beautiful. You know, when I watch it, it's like, we were to the same places. I mean, you could have been there and I could have been there at the same time. I remember, you know, even like the buses, the stations. You went, of course, to Nara with the little Boeing deer, and like it's you put me exactly back into my same trip, because I didn't take footage, I didn't take video, I took digital photos, only took one roll of film because I bought the camera there. So it was kind of interesting that, you know, like just to relive my own experiences through someone else's experience as well. It was kind of cool.
That's so nice, actually.
But
do you also miss it sometimes? Like, I've only been like into Japan once, but I think there's like nothing I miss more than like proper Japanese food and like all the little stores and the camera, like big camera shops.
I miss it. It's a place that I would not hesitate if I can to go back, because I do feel like every time you go, you would see things differently, you would experience things differently. To me, it was the most different place I visited in the world, I would say. And I travel around, but the feeling that I got being in Japan is that it's a very different place than where I come from and other places that I visited. And for photography, I would like to explore it in different ways as well, obviously. Yeah, I do miss Japan. It's one of the places I would go back to, for sure.
I've never been and I really want to go.
Yeah, so
I thought you've been there together, but it was only you, Eva.
Yeah, it was only me. It was back in 2017. I was very, very lucky to get a scholarship from the Tokyo Institute of Technology to go to a symposium and a conference there, and then I took time to just stroll around that area as well. So
that's nice.
It was a very cool trip, and the jet lag and everything totally worth it. No, it was. So your photos really like put me back into, you know, that place. So it's a nice reminder.
I really like this photo. I have a question. Did you bring the rolls back with you and develop them in Germany, or did you develop them there in Japan?
No, I developed them here in Germany. Because we didn't stay long enough in one place, I was too scared. I wouldn't. I mean, now I know that there's places that develop in one day, but back then it was like, I think my first trip where I took all analog, because before that I was like still shooting like on trips or on important trips. I was shooting digital, and I was too scared that something would happen and I wouldn't get my rolls back, and brought everything back home, developed it here. But in hindsight, maybe it would have been better to develop it there and bring like the developed rolls back, because I was like super scared that something would happen on the flight, like with the X-ray.
Yeah, that's also a good point.
But it's interesting that, you know, all that you know, you were afraid that something would happen to the film, and it's the digital files that ended up being correct.
Kind of ironic.
Yeah, something similar happened to me, but like this will make you feel better, I think, about your story, because, you know, at least you didn't have anything to do with it. You know what I mean? Like, you went to this trip, it was very special, you took all this footage, and, you know, and something out of your control happened. The memory card was corrupted. It's not your fault. I went to Copenhagen one time and I took my OM10, which is the Olympus tiny camera, and I went to visit Christiania, the free city. And that city, everybody told me, do not take photos there.
Yeah, and we know why.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful place because it has, I don't know if you guys have been, but it's full of graffiti. It's such a unique looking place.
A lot of things going on too.
A lot of things going on. I mean, but the atmosphere, the vibe, it's just so unique to be there. And it's like, it's a part of Copenhagen that I want to remember. I want to see the photos. So I took a bunch of photos. I even took videos, and nobody saw me. I was super sneaky about it. And I took a bunch of stuff. And I also took a lot of photos in Copenhagen. But those photos I can retake easily. I mean, not exactly the same photos, but I can revisit Copenhagen, take photos. So I have a memory stick in it that is 120 gigabytes. And in the trip, I'm like, at some point in the trip, I filled it up completely, 120 gigabytes of photos and videos. And before I go, I bought a hard drive. And at some point in the trip, I decided to empty the memory stick to the hard drive. And then I kept shooting. And then when I came back home, I was like, okay, I need to empty the memory stick and the hard drive. But before I do that, I should format my hard drive because I don't want any of the manufacturer software. I want to make sure that it's like Mac compatible, you know.
Oh, no.
And then I format it and I delete 120 gigabytes, including the stuff that I got so sneakily in Christiania. And it's gone forever.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. But something similar happened to me as well once. I think we've all been there. Like, you know, you can't say that analog is like in any way risky because it happens with digital as well. It can be because of like own mistakes or happy accidents, how Bob Ross would call them, but it can also be because of technology. So I think, I mean, this turns pretty negative. I don't want to say it can happen always and mistakes can always happen and shit can go, but stuff can go down, right? But we learn from that, right? Yeah. And I think hopefully at least that will not happen again.
I hope so.
Yeah.
This is also in Japan.
Yes.
You were in the mood for subframing in Japan. It's really cool.
Yeah, right. Now that you mention it. Honestly, sometimes I have a hard time talking about my own photos because I feel like it's, you know, I think it's a thin line because kind of being proud of what you do, not self-doubting yourself and still kind of being happy. And I think I'm more on the side of self-doubting myself a lot of times. But I think that this is like an image that I'm really happy with, that I'm still happy with, that I'm still kind of proud of. And I think, yeah, this is why I say that it's kind of hard to talk about your own work sometimes because I also don't want to praise myself. I don't think that this is the best image ever, but it's still like an image that I really like, that I like the contrast of with the man and the like looking sad, looking kind of tired, looking exhausted, then the like picture of the woman on the other side. And also if you've been to Japan, you know that like empty trains are a rare thing to find. Usually they are packed and you cannot even breathe in there. So just alone the moment of having just one person in a train, I think was very kind of special for me. And yeah, I think it's just one of the rare occasions where I can happily and confidently say about myself without hopefully not sounding like I would brag, that I'm just genuinely happy that I took the shot, that I'm genuinely happy with how it turned out, that there's like no self-doubt and I like it. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, maybe I should re-clarify that we ask you to choose those photos that you like of your work, the photos that may not necessarily mean anything to other people, but it's like those photos that I feel like every photographer knows that moment when they take a photo and they kind of like go yes after it.
That's it. Yeah. That was one of those for sure.
I love knowing what other photographers like. What are those photos for them? Because you never know really unless you ask.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, it's just, if you just only tell me that, it's good enough for me. Not every story needs to have a photo. So I don't want you to stress about it.
No, it's I really love that one from Japan, especially because what you commented, that is such a unique vision. Like it's very Japanese, but at the same time it's very not Japanese because it's so so rare that you will find those brief moments. So it's kind of like a breather, especially when you know how busy Japan is, how crazy everything is. This feels like a breath of fresh air in a sense, you know, in how life is. But at the same time, it has also this more like, you know, like maybe the loneliness and being only one there it's not a good breath of fresh air, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I like this photo for so many reasons. Maybe I should get into it because that's what I usually do on the podcast. You have like 4 layers of subframing in this photo. You have rhythm and beautiful color. I really love it. Like if you see the window is framing this guy, but the window is also framing the scene, which has another window in it framing the behind, while you also have these 2 poles framing I think 2 people in the back standing over there. It's so layered, and these things back in like, so these 2 window sills, I believe, are like creating this depth. I mean, I can go on. I think this was, like, technically speaking, this is one of my favorite photos that I've seen in a while. Really, compositionally speaking. I didn't want to make it awkward for you, like praising you to your face, because, I understand it can be,
Hard.
hard
Yeah,
to respond after I say that. So you don't have to say anything. But I really like it. I really love how also the tint of that window kind of matches the color on the outside of the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really nice. And the symmetry here, there's so many elements in this photo that I like. So it makes total sense to me why you would want to share this. It's a beautiful photo.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. What about this one?
Yeah, this one actually has a story because I was talking about the gas mask earlier, right? And this was in a place close to Vilnius. And well, I was on a train to this like small spot with the like market and stuff. And as I was sitting on the train, we were like passing a lot of like train stations. And I noticed that there's like a lot of interesting small stops where I could take photos from the train, right? So I was like not on the street, but I was like in the train, and this is like train stations from outside. And I have like, I think 4 images of very similar scenes, all with like 2 people on a bench from this kind of drive. And they were all on the negative next to each other. But I think this is like one of my favorite ones from the bunch. But there was like several, like 2 women crossing the train tracks, like 2 elderly people sitting on a bench, like just a kind of repetitive theme going on here, like as I was shooting from the train. And as I said, it was like 4 or 5 scenes, all very similar. And I remember that I saw that, that I scanned this image, and I was like, oh, I think I like it. I would like to print it. And it was on one of my last days that I was still living in Scandinavia, having access to the darkroom. So I decided to make a print out of it, like in the darkroom, and I put it into the negative carrier. And I just remember that I had like so much to do because I left the country, and I just had so many things to do that I did my prints, was happy with the print, cleaned up everything, and went back home and took the flight home. And at some point I looked through my negatives and I was like, wait, no, wait, no, are you for real? And this negative stayed in the carrier, and I only noticed like weeks later because I was so busy with getting my life together. And I immediately texted the people who were there, like, hey, I'm looking for this image, like these images were on the negative, do you see the negative somewhere? It was exactly those 5 images that are like in the series. Mm-hmm. And I actually got back to Norway like a couple of months later, and I was back in this dark room, and I was like searching with the people who were still there, and we couldn't find it. It's lost. So I have like all my negatives, and then there's like one black stripe, which is also like missing this image, and all of the other 4 images. But luckily I still have them scanned. So I have like the scans and the prints I made from it, but I'm missing the negative. And I don't know why, but it just hurts on a next level to not be able to ever print it again. That is just like, it's even worse than accidentally deleting like your hard drive, because this is like the physical thing that's missing, right? Well, this is it's still awful when I think about it, to be honest.
But then, I mean, in a sense, it really makes those prints that you make of this even more unique. This is the only one that exists from it, and it is the only physical print that it would be ever made from it, because you don't have the negative anymore, right? So even if it's not your favorite print in terms of technical, I don't know how good you were.
It got fogged a little bit. It was on like foggy paper, so it's like technically not the best, but I still appreciate that I have it.
Yeah, but it has such a like emotional value to it as well, and it's probably the most unique photo you will have. I hope you don't lose more negatives throughout your lives. So I think it's maybe we can see it as a very, very special photo.
Hey, maybe in 100 years, somebody, one of your grandkids will make a lot of money selling this one-off print. You never know.
You never know, indeed.
I mean,
take good care of it.
But I understand it hurts because, like, deleting something digitally is gone. It's not somewhere, but you can't reach it. This one, the physical thing is somewhere.
But you cannot find it.
But where is it?
Where is it?
But it's probably they collect like lost negatives and keep them for a couple of weeks, and then they throw them away if nobody picks them up, because usually people would forget it and then come back like a week later and pick it up.
Yeah.
And it was there like probably for 5 or 6 weeks before I noticed. So I think it just got to the trash.
Too bad.
I mean, I manage a dark room, and we would never throw anything away, because you never know. Like, there were things from 10 years back of people that did stuff, and we wanted to do cleaning, and it was like, okay, this is, we should throw this away. No one is coming back for this. Like scraps, test prints and stuff like that. And I was
Really?
like, yeah. We still had like super old stuff, and it's like, you don't even know who it is. Like, no, but maybe this person come back to pick it up. It's like, no one's gonna come back for this. So I'm so sorry that they were so effective on cleaning up around.
No, but honestly, I don't blame them. It was my own fault that I forgot it.
Oh.
It's okay. Also, it's like a more or less like student community darkroom. So I think it's just people forget stuff all the time. And I think,
Yeah, I guess.
you know, it's just, it gets overcrowded if you keep like negatives from like, I don't know how many people. So I don't blame them at all. It happens. I learned from it. It won't happen again. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Crunchy fingers crossed. Hopefully.
I really like this one. I really like that. This one kind of reminds me of a bunch of photos that I like put together. Like the first vibe when I see the thumbnail on the bottom left, because it's so tiny you can't see it but like maybe I can show you. When I see it like this on the bottom corner, it reminds me of the cover of Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, even though it's completely different, but it kind of gives me that vibe. But at the same time, it reminds me of so many different things. And it feels like, you know how the lines are kind of splitting the frame into different frames?
And well, tell us the story and why you chose it. But yeah, I can tell a lot about this one.
I think Jimmy is doing a way better job than me to try to like interpret the compositions. I really love it. Like you could go on and on and on, but I can also tell you a little bit about the backstory, because I think at least for me, it's also like an interesting one, or at least a kind of personal one, because I was living in Oslo for a while. And I don't know if you're familiar with the like infrastructure or with the quarters in Oslo, but basically there's like one place that is more or less known as the place where a lot of immigrants live, which is like also the best place to get vegetables in. Like I always bought all of my vegetables there.
Yes.
But it has like this kind of, or people talk about this place a bit negatively as well, because people say that it can get dangerous, it can get sketchy, and, you know, just like it can be like not such a safe place. And when I was taking photos on the streets in Oslo, like other people also told me, you know, just keep away from that place, which is called Grönland. And sometimes I kind of feel drawn to the places that are a bit like sketchy and a bit have this like mystery to them. And I don't know, I like multicultural places. I really loved it there. I don't think there was like anything sketchy or dangerous about it at all. Like I hang out there all the time. But sometimes I was like a bit more cautious when it came to taking pictures, because, you know, I heard so many bad things even if I didn't have like bad experiences there. But I've been in this area and I had my camera with me, and then I saw the two women standing there. And I don't know, for me, it's more or less like a metaphor of how I think this quarter is perceived. I think it's really nice that you see the name of the quarter. It's like Grönland in the right corner there. And I just kind of like, And I kind of like that the like image is split in the middle, and there's like this pole kind of almost falling down on them, which I think just carries so much symbolism in it. I like that like one of them is on the like, I don't know how you call this thing, like crossroad thing, like the stripes.
Zebra walk,
the zebra walk, exactly. And one is not, and then there's like two people, and also the lights are like on red. I mean, it's black and white film, but you know that there's like two symbols, so it's like on red and not on green. And I think there's just like so much symbolism to how I think the people in this area are perceived by the like Norwegian people living there.
Yeah,
I just noticed the because I've never seen light, you know, traffic lights for pedestrians with red, yellow, and green. I don't think I've ever seen them.
No, I don't think I have seen them either.
And it's so cool that you caught it when it was. So I'm assuming this is
Exactly,
red and yellow.
No, I think it's both red. I think sometimes, at least in Germany, we have those as well,
Oh.
where just like red is extra
Okay.
stressed with like two
Oh,
icons instead of
that's
one. So I think
crazy.
it wasn't yellow. At least I don't remember they had like yellow
Yeah.
street.
I mean,
street
I've never seen these either. The ones that I've seen are variations of it's the same bulb
But there's
and
only
it changes from green to red,
Yeah.
or one red and one green.
That
But
makes sense.
I've never
yeah.
seen three on top of each
No, me
other,
neither.
and that two of them flash at the same time, and then you got two symbols there, and then two people sounding. That's so cool. Nice. I didn't notice that at first glance. That makes it extra cool.
Yeah, it's compositionally this is one of my favorites. I really like the Japan framing one, but I really love the lines and the blocks of elements
And that
within this picture.
that tilting thingy, I mean, it's not only just cool because it looks like it's gonna fall on them, but it happens to. I think it's falling on a Baroque diagonal, just parallel,
Yeah,
which is my favorite thing.
Yeah, and also it breaks the compositions because there's so many straight lines and it's the only diagonal in the frame, more or less.
So cool.
although I mean, to me, there's also an implied diagonal of these elements here, which is parallel to this one.
Nobody can see what you're
So
pointing.
I'm telling you so you can point at it.
I couldn't see.
Sorry. Like this element,
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah,
an implied diagonal, which is exactly parallel to this.
yeah. So Eva is pointing with her finger from here, right? From here to this corner.
Yeah, so the elements
Some-
form.
Other things happening in this
Yeah.
frame is that way. Yeah. Because this, I guess so. I mean, this part of the frame is more organic.
Yeah,
This one is more like,
blocky or like
more. How to say?
inorganic.
Yeah. But then this one breaks it. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's
Very
really
nice.
very nice photo.
Very nice, Karin. I love this
Thank you.
photo.
I seriously, I'm awkward with like compliments, but I'm seriously thankful for your words. Like, thanks.
Well, you make it easy. Your photos are so nice. Did we cover everything? Did I miss any questions
From the things we
from the people?
from the people's questions, I think we cover everything. We did have the topic of that we wanted to just mention or maybe go a little bit through it. I don't know how much time do we have. I mean, we're almost 2 hours in, but I think it might be.
We don't have any.
No, I don't have any rush at all. So
Yeah, let's do one more and then call it a day. What you say? One more?
Yeah, let's go for it.
sure.
Do you have the question over there?
I do have it here. So someone commented on the post when we said that we were gonna interview you, and they were saying, "Hi Karin, I subscribe to your channel and I really like it as well as your character. I also like film photography, but I can't come to terms using carcinogenic chemicals for myself and polluting the environment as well when I know that digital won't. I am fighting cancer, so I'm trying to stay with digital. My question is how to rationalize using film when the developing chemicals are so harmful." And we just wanted to bring it up because it's an important question, but it's also a question that we think has a lot of nuances and a lot of things to really think about and take in account when either making a decision or thinking about the process. So yeah, the question was directed to you, so maybe you can start the conversation about it. So how do you think about film photography and the potential harmfulness of the chemicals of the process?
Yeah, oh man, I think this is a question we could probably also talk an hour about, right? So I try to say everything I think, but I also try to make it not too long because we could go in depth here. But I think like firstly, it is a personal like decision. And I think when talking about this topic, there's like no way to say or to convince somebody or to say, oh, it's not that bad, you should do it, or it's really bad, you shouldn't do it. I think just like with every choices in life, it's there's pros and there's cons, and you just have to outweigh which one is right for you. And if I hear like also this like a heartbreaking story of, somebody battling cancer, battling a disease, I 100% agree why you would not get in contact with anything that might be like harmful. And so I think it's just like I speak from a different position that this person is probably speaking from. So I don't feel like I can entitled to say, oh, it's not that bad, but I do it anyway or whatever. But I totally respect, and I wouldn't say anything against this personal decision. And I think for this person, it might be right. Like for me personally, and this is just my personal kind of opinion, like not developing film is probably, no, again, like developing film is probably more harmful than not developing film. That's a fact. But I still think that developing film is kind of a dangerous thing for health that I can at least have some sort of control over. So I know that I can, for example, wear gloves. I can dispose of the cameras, of the chemicals properly. I wouldn't dispose of my cameras. I can kind of try to, for example, I could wear a mask. I wouldn't have to breathe in the like chemicals in, and I know the frequency I develop in. So for me, it is like a dangerous thing that I can at least have some control over, which I think other things that I do or that people do might even be more harmful. Like not to open up a big big topic, but for example, people who consume meat, there's also like some chance of getting like disabilities or diseases from this consumption, which is always like a trade-off. And for me, like personally, the trade-off is okay to get in this probably potential danger zone, because I know that in other areas of my lifestyle, I am, very kind of cautious. And with film photography, I am as well. So for me personally, the health question is not really an issue because I feel protected when I develop film. But as I said, I can understand when people prefer not to. And I think the other aspect that's kind of implied in the question was also about like the environment, and if like film photography and chemicals are bad for the environment. And also here, even though like the environment is a broader topic, it's still like a kind of personal choice. And there's a lot of things that have an impact on the environment. And there's so many other things like waste of plastic, like, as I said, meat consumption, like public transportation, if you use the car, if you use the bicycle or whatever. And it's so many different facets that go into the big kind of question whether or not it's, good or bad for the environment. And I think we have to ask ourselves the question what the alternative would be. And the alternative digital is maybe greener than film, but it's not green. We just have to be sure that this is like digital is not a green medium as well, because for the production of cameras, there's fossil fuels that are needed. There's like a lot of waste when it comes to cameras. So I think like just from a like environmental perspective, the greenest way would be to buy a digital camera used and not use any like cloud system, because like clouds are also the worst thing ever for the environment with the service and everything. So as you said, it's a super complex question that we could like talk about for hours. But for me personally, just like with the health issue, it's a trade-off, because I know that I can have like some control over it. I can dispose my chemicals properly. I can try to some extent also buy a small portion of film or cameras that are secondhand, that are like not produced new and stuff like that. And I know that in some other areas of my life, I can, I wouldn't say compensate, but I know that in some other areas of my life, I am also very cautious to not harm the environment. So I think it's just like a big thing you have to look from above, not only like on one aspect, and film photography is just one aspect on what you can do to your health and to the environment. And this was a very long answer, but I just feel like it's not easy to answer this one in one sentence.
No.
Yeah, it's definitely sensitive and complicated, but I definitely agree. I mean, I think the person is asking you this question because they look up to you in one way or another, and they kind of want to, I think they find it interesting. Maybe they want to try it out, but at the same time, and I understand you can't tell anybody really to do anything that they have any concern about how it affects their health. And for, everybody who's wondering, yes, the chemicals from photochemicals are harmful, and you should always be careful. Karin, you mentioned a lot of important things that you need to do. I just want to reiterate those. I don't think you missed anything, but I just want to re-stress those, that be careful when you're working with photochemistry. Always keep a window open. If you can put a fan aiming at you, do that. Don't do it in a place where you eat. And if you have to, make sure you kind of cover everything while you work, and then when you are done working, you can remove the protection. And the most important thing is learn from your local government how to dispose of your chemicals, because if you want to take the risk with yourself, I mean, that's a personal choice. And so if you don't want to do all the measures of wearing gloves, protection, ventilation, please don't harm the environment and do the responsible thing and take your chemicals to the facility where they're supposed to be disposed of. Don't just throw them in the drain, especially. I mean, some countries, I think they can handle some chemicals. Always check with your local guidelines on how to dispose of your chemicals. And not all photochemicals are the same, meaning that if some chemicals are okay to dispose of, others might not be.
Yeah.
So like if you use different developers for black and white, different chemistry for doing different things, check which ones are okay to dispose of and how. Nobody should do anything they're not comfortable with.
Definitely.
Yeah. But very, very important. I think you summed it up really, really like perfectly. Just if you do it, like be thoughtful, be responsible, don't trash the environment. I think this is just rule number one with everything in life, not only film photography.
Absolutely.
For sure. I mean, to this person, which I feel like you were saying that this person really likes film photography, but they're concerned and then thinking about the pros and cons, it's something that it doesn't have to be black and white. You don't have to do everything at home and do everything yourself and expose yourself to these potential harms. But, if you're in that situation, you can always get a camera. Getting a film camera is green in relative terms. There are things that were produced long time ago. They're still around. They still work.
You can use them without batteries.
You can the ones that are completely mechanical. You can use them without batteries, and then get some film, and then get the film developed somewhere. You are supporting a business that is doing something, and then you don't have to put yourself at risk of these chemicals as well.
CM just mentioned something that completely slipped my mind. Thank you, CM. Bellini makes an eco line of chemicals for film developers.
Oh.
So this is, I've heard about this a while ago. I think Tim told me about it. And check Bellini if you want to take the extra step. As far as I know, I don't know. I personally haven't dug so much into the production of photochemistry. I don't know how much it harms just producing it. How much it harms. So I understand also that if you really want to be completely green, so basically you're not supporting any big industry that is harming the environment, you never use plastic, you always use reusable containers to buy your produce and different oils and stuff like that. There are stores that you can go and buy. So you can, not necessarily in bulk, you can just go with the one in Vesteros, you can go with your jars and fill up olive oil and whatever you need, soap. You can just take your jars with you and fill them up with produce and stuff, and they will weigh them before and after. But so if you're that type of person and you're trying to completely eliminate any of that, maybe look into Bellini, see if their eco line fits your ethical choices. And I don't know about labs. That's the thing. I don't know. Labs, for sure, they have to follow the guidelines in developing the chemicals. And they also disposing of the chemicals. They must, because they use so many quantities. And I think they have to be regulated. They have to have licenses. And if they broke those practices, they could lose their license. And I know also that the way they do them, like with dip and dunk machines and stuff like that, the operators don't spend so much time in the same room as the chemistry. They go in, they load the film, they run the machine, and they leave the room. So you're not necessarily putting someone else in harm
as well
if you take. But about the production of film, that's an issue that I'm not aware of. Again, I'm not the most green person. I'm not super happy about that. I'm just trying to live, do what I can, and I don't think there's any shame in that, to be honest with you. If somebody is better than me at that, praise to them. I hope I can be better. Yeah, I mean, I think where there is a will, there is a way. I'm assuming the Bellini people really didn't want to
found a way.
found a way, so
Yeah.
support them. I think that's could be a good thing for everybody.
Mhm.
And I mean, I really really like the fact that nowadays new inventions in this field is coming up the whole time. Like these companies are coming out of everywhere. We talked about Germany, we talked about
Mhm.
the UK. We didn't mention, I think Italy. I think they might be Bellini from Italy.
Sounds German.
But I know-
Italy for sure.
I know there's another company in Italy that make cool other stuff. Again, I'm not saying, I don't know if they're green or not, but they make these reversal kits.
Mhm.
So it's really cool that new inventions are happening, and if you really want to do this thing but you're concerned about environment, speak up about it. Don't be afraid. If this matters to you, speak up about it, and maybe somebody will find solutions for these problems. I mean, we live in a world that is now, like, we're lucky to live in this time where it's advanced enough that people are
We can do
finding
something,
solutions
yeah.
rather than abandoning things. So
Yeah.
this could be there could be a silver lining here.
Mhm.
And also, like, I'm also like really thankful about questions like that, because it opens up this conversation and because it pinpoints that there are still problems also like in the film community world. And I can also like recommend some videos that Madison Beach did on her channel, because she was talking about the issue like about environmental friendliness of film before, and also like a topic that I personally also feel kind of connected to, because film is not like vegan. Film contains gelatin, and I'm sure that there's a lot of people who are kind of in a conflict because of that, because the medium kind of helps them to express creatively, but maybe might hit some moral spots there or ethical spots that are hard to kind of find a common ground on. So I think we should have like more of these questions and more of these conversations to, you know, push people or the community to think about solutions, which ties it together to like the creativity, because it's a problem and we need problem solving skills for that, to see if there's a way to make chemicals even more environmental friendly, if there's a way to maybe make film that is actually good vegan without any gelatin and stuff like that. So I think these are the problems that we are still facing, and we can only tackle them when people ask and we have a chat about that. So I think it's really good that there's people who are concerned about these issues.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I never thought of the gelatin in
Me
film.
neither, actually.
Yeah.
It crushed my world. I never knew that. Like I was shooting film for like 2 years when somebody mentioned like, you know, there's gelatin in it, and it was just like, what?
Yeah,
No
the
way.
emotion, of
It
course.
broke me emotionally. Like seriously, I think it was a very bad thing to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not vegan or vegetarian. I consume meat in a, I'd like to say in a moderate way. Like it's something special to me. I understand people who choose not to consume it. I wish it was more expensive and less accessible. To be honest with you, I wouldn't mind. I don't like the
Mass produced.
I don't like the mass produced, like the way everything has become really. And especially with meat, I feel like we should appreciate it more. I wish I could like maybe like hunt a big animal myself and just like, you know, stock a freezer for a year, and you know, just have the animals free roaming. And yeah, because like if we're gonna get into this like thing about hunting and stuff, I believe that hunting can in some cases help the population of the animals. Like it's not something that is I don't think everybody should be able to hunt, but I think you should be able to hunt when you're maybe helping the environment. And I think a lot of animals can feed a big family for a year, like a single animal, if you
for
if
sure.
you harvest the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I understand the idea of boycotting meat because of the way it is mass produced, but I don't necessarily sign up to the idea that in absolute terms meat is bad for you. But again, I'm not saying that I'm right, and I'm not saying other people are wrong. I'm not saying that people should do exactly what I do. I think that's also a choice that I make freely. And I also respect other people for doing for choosing what they choose. So like again, if meat consumption, if it becomes at some point not feasible for these companies to keep selling because a lot of people are boycotting and the prices increase and it becomes less common to be able to buy meat, I wouldn't be upset. I personally wouldn't be. I would be happy about it, actually. I would feel more at ease eating meat that way.
I mean,
so I commend anybody who wants to.
I think the problem comes like with a lot of stuff, not only just food and or it's a numbers game. It's how things are made because there's so much and we want things so quickly, right? Like it's the same with like harvesting or like putting crops of things out of the time of the season where they're supposed to be and then harvested them. Like that's what is putting a pressure on the system and what is wrong with it, in my opinion, rather than having a more sustainable way of consuming all sort of things. Like that's to me the important part.
I think the whole idea, like the whole convenient idea, is the worst thing about the whole thing. And it's not just about meat, like plastics are a big problem as well. You know what I mean? It all stems from convenient. I don't know. I mean, I know it might be a sensitive topic for you, Karin, and I know we have disagreements. I see some of the comments also commenting about like scientific, about the intestines and
that we are
the
not
digestions. And I don't want to argue about this. I don't think it...
it's part of the conversation.
Yeah, I don't think it's a part of the conversation. I mean, again...
We're driving off a bit here, but I mean, it's okay.
Yeah. But I think us agreeing to disagree about this also goes back to the same answer that you had for the person who asked the question. Is like, I can't tell you that you should do this because I choose to do it. You know what I mean? Like you have you give yourself this, how do you say? Like you let yourself do this even though you might not be so comfortable with it. And it's a personal choice and there is nothing wrong with it. And I think as long as you're aware of that, I think that's what matters.
Yeah, aware of the choices what one makes and the reason behind those choices. I think that's the important part.
Yeah, as long as it's not mindless consumption.
Yeah.
I think that's the takeaway. For me, at least. For me personally. It could be different for anybody who's listening. And I don't mean to trigger anybody. Really, I love you all. And sorry if it bothers you that I eat meat. I don't have a problem with you not eating it. I actually applaud you for that. But that's the way it is. I feel like I should admit, because if it's ultimately wrong and Karin says this is bad and I just nod, I feel like I'm lying. I should speak up about what I do and how I do it and stuff like that.
It's a bit like you're defending yourself here.
No, I am. I feel like, because, I feel like I don't want to trigger people. You know what I mean? I know it's a sensitive topic. And again, I'm not so, I spoke in the beginning that I'm not so happy about how it is. I wish it was different. Not my choice, the whole thing around my choice.
The system around it as well.
But we also create the system around us with our choices. Like, I mean, I don't want to go too deep into it, and I think this is like a totally different topic, but it's all like intertwined here as well. And I think like with what we consume, be it meat, be it something else, everybody is like calling out capitalism and still buying things. Like we cannot call out capitalism if we keep on buying things, right? So I think it goes hand in hand. And of course the system has to change, but how will the system change if we won't? But let's just call it a day. We can agree to disagree. It's totally fine. And I'm not here to be like, I'm not vegan myself, but I think I'm just like cautious about, like I'm vegetarian, I'm not vegan, but I'm very cautious about this topic. And I think it's okay. Like it's important to have a conversation about that, but I don't think we have to go all deep into it. And we're here to have fun. We're here to connect. We're here to have like film photography, and everybody can, have their own opinions about different topics.
Absolutely. I think what I sum up with my take on it is that as an omnivore myself, I try to make the conscious choice to be more mindful about my purchases and to be more mindful about how I contribute to this whole thing. And I'm not necessarily calling out capitalism, because if I start calling out capitalism, I'll be a hypocrite long time ago. It's just that there are some things that we should be mindful of. Using your skateboard to go, you use your bicycle, I use my longboard to go places. If I don't need to use the car, that's another choice that you make consciously. There's a lot of things that you can do.
There are so many different things.
Yeah, and in some cases,
nobody is perfect. Nobody does things perfect. But I think we all, like everybody, and I think this is like not discussable, should do the best we can in whatever kind of possibilities we have. So if people don't want to... Let's stop it here. It's okay. My attention span is like almost dead right now.
That's all right.
It was such a long conversation, but let's just call it a day, and say we agree to disagree. And I think we're all we wouldn't sit here if we would not all be conscious about how we live our lives, how we, consume goods, and how we, do it. So I think we're very close, even though it might appear that we're a bit far apart on this topic. I think we do agree, in fact.
Actually, CM is now bringing up a positive point. For anyone that's vegan, I want to shoot analog. Look into historical processes and alternative processes that do not involve gelatin as well. One of my favorite ones, anthotype. Anthotype is actually making photos by doing extracts of different plants and flowers, which is beautiful.
You probably like it. Are you familiar with anthotype, Karin? It's basically like a cyanotype. But you make it at home using you can use any plant material.
Yeah.
So like spinach.
Some might work better than others, but all plants have these these chemicals that are sensitive to UV.
Yeah.
So you can actually make photos with almost any sort of plant extract.
Yeah.
So it's really, really cool.
They have different exposure times. You can.
There is a woman that has done a very comprehensive research on this, and I think it's in the page alternativeprocesses.com, and then you can see there all the types. She has tested so many different
and they're so
plants.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
But I want to say I'm happy about the conversation we had, because to be honest with you, we wanted to do the podcast from the beginning to include different topics, to talk about different topics. So it's not for us. It's not necessarily only always about photography. I mean,
it's all connected anyway.
Yeah.
The last time we had a guest on the show, Regis, he talked about a lot of
humanitarian
issues. He's a photojournalist who's been to terrible places where people are in horrible conditions, and the conversation was more about that than photography. And it's important. We want to talk about these things. It gets really boring if you talk about photography every week. So, and we are interested to learn about
and sharing different opinions and viewpoints, and understanding why someone might think one way or another way.
Absolutely. But I think everybody's tired now.
Chris is saying, also consider that just 80 years ago, the Earth population was only 1/3 from what it is today, which comes back to what I said. Yeah. It's a numbers game in a sense. So I think what we need to figure out with a lot of creative thinking is how do we manage the amount of people that we are.
We go to Mars.
Right?
Sign me up.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think we should call today, and because I really want to, before Karin is too tired to show me the camera offline, I want to see it. So I really want to thank you for joining us today.
Yes.
It was really, really fun talking to you.
The time flew.
Absolutely. I think it did. This is, you're competing with the Regis for the longest episode ever, which is really cool. And as always, you're always welcome to come back whenever you want to talk to us about different stuff. And do you have anything to let the people know if somebody's meeting you for the first time? Anything you wanna? I mean, we're leaving all your links in the description, so everybody go check her Instagram and her YouTube channel and everything. But is there any new projects that are coming up you wanna tell us about? Anything you have in mind?
Maybe just a small spoiler that I uploaded a video while we were in the chat, so nice. You can actually continue binge watching us and take a look at the video if you like, because I've been working on some projects that I shot in Berlin when I was there a couple of weeks ago. So there's definitely like more Berlin stuff coming up next. And yeah, I think I will be busy with the footage for a while and see what will happen afterwards. And yeah.
Great.
I'm really tired now. And I think we could go on and on and on this conversation. I would love to continue chatting, but I was at work before today as well. So I'm like, my attention span is getting a bit shorter now, but it was such a pleasure. Like, it was so much fun to talk to you. And I really enjoyed that we don't talk only about photography, because like, I really think that everything is connected, and there's, like, as we say, like with science and art, and like with the environmental issues we tackled last, I think it, everything is connected by so many things. And I think it's the beauty of it, that we can talk about so many different things, starting from photography and being like on the Mars 2 sentences later. So that was so much fun. Like, thanks a lot for having me. If you ever want to chat again, we should definitely do it. I would absolutely be down.
Great. And thank you everyone that has been with us for from the beginning. I think we had a constant 2.5 hours. Thank you for joining, and thank you for keeping up with our conversation. And yeah, Karin, I'm very happy that you took on the invitation and to have you here and to, for real, get to know you a little bit more.
Yeah. I like måte, I can say.
All right, everybody. Have a great rest of the week.
And see you
next time.
Yeah, back next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.